Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to my first anime video in over 3 months. As if it's actually, yes, we've gone 3 months with no anime content on this channel. And now it's back, so anyone who subscribed to this channel between September and December of 2020, hopefully you stuck around, because we're back with the content that you subscribed for in the first place. If you want to know if you want the update of how I decided that anime will be returning, I made an update video 2 days ago, so just go check that out if you want to know the ins and outs of everything. So, for my first anime video back, I've decided I'm going to cover the show that I've been absolutely obsessed with for the past 3 months. Well, we're going to be covering season 1 of it today, and in just over 1 week from now, we're going to be covering season 2, since season 2 hasn't finished yet, but it's almost finished. What show is that? It's the Quintessential Quintuplets. You guys may have seen that I've been going on and on and on about this show on Twitter because it's so good. I know this sounds like a bold statement considering we're only in March, but I feel like not season 1 obviously, because season 1 was released in 2019, but season 2 very well could be my anime of the year for 2021 already. We're only in March and that's how good it is. But we're not covering season 2 today, so we'll leave that. We're covering season 1. So the show begins with our main character, Futaro Usagi, who is currently sleeping at a table on his wedding day. As somebody's trying to wake him up, because it's his wedding day, he needs to get ready for the ceremony. But we flash back all the way to when he met his bride, which is one of 5 different people. Imagine that, getting 5 different people to choose from to be your wife. Yeah, this is a harem anime, but it's not your average harem anime, because it's way more wholesome than most harem animes actually are. So, we flash back to Futaro at his school, at his cafeteria. He gets his food and goes to sit down, and a girl happens to put her tray down on the same table as him at the same time. And he's thinking, who's this? I always sit here. Who are you? And the girl tells him to move. He tells her to move, so neither of them do, and they just sit down. Futaro decides to look at his exam paper and the questions he'd just done, and he leaves his exam paper, the actual exam paper, out for the girl to look at and see that he got a perfect score. And the girl starts to look very flustered. And Futaro is thinking, why are you so flustered? Then he looks down at her food compared to his. His food costed a total of 100 yen. Her food costed a total of 1,030 yen. And he's thinking, what are you, filthy stinking rich? Well, yeah, she is, actually. So that's kind of the interaction they have that day. Futaro goes home. Well, later that day, Futaro gets a call on his phone from his little sister, telling him that a new job has come up. It is a tutoring job of a nice family environment, who are paying 5 times the normal market price. if you haven't guessed yet, Futaro is really poor. Like, if you want to understand how poor and commoner Futaro is, he's Haruhi Fujioka. Poor. That's the best way to explain it. If you know how poor and commoner Haruhi is, Futaro is exactly the same. So he asks what is the name of the family, and his sister says Nakano. And he's like, okay. That girl then the girl that he met yesterday happens to be in the same class as him. And she says that her name is Itsuki Nakano. And Sutra's thinking, oh, crap. I'm tutoring her. Why did I make her angry yesterday? So then we get back to the cafeteria where Futaro wants to talk to Itsuki again, mainly to tell her about the fact that he's going to be tutoring her for the coming weeks and months. But she goes to sit down with what he assumes is her friends, when in reality, it's actually her sisters. So Futaro just decides to leave and go off to his table, but he's stopped by the big sister, who's called Ichika. She says to Futaro, "You're after Itsuki, aren't you?" And he's like, "No, I'm not." Then he goes to sit down. He's thinking in his head, but he keeps hearing this faint voice saying "Usagi-san," and it happens to be the next sister, who is called Yotsuba. And she gives she gives Futaro back his exam paper. He scored 100 out. He scored 100 out of 100. She scored 0 out of 100. And she spends pretty much the rest of the day following him around. But just before they leave the cafeteria, we meet the next sister, called Miku. And she is asked by Yotsuba, "Are there any guys that you like?" Miku then becomes flustered and says no and walks away. But Ichika and Yotsuba are like, she's in love. So Futaro's trying to figure out a way to actually get to Itsuki to tell her that he will be tutoring her. He even goes as far as to try and hide himself in those like things where it's a body, but then there's a hole in the head. There's a hole at the top for the head, and you stick your head through it. You probably know what I mean, but yeah, I don't know what to call those things. Well, and Miku spots Futaro spying on them, and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "This is my hobby." "What? Staring at high school girls?" I'm calling in to report. And he says, "Please don't report me." It's actually quite funny how Futaro's like, "No, please, you have no idea where this is going." Futaro finally arrives at where Itsuki lives, almost runs out of breath and keels over just to get to her. And she says, I'm waiting for a tutor." And he says, "Yeah, that's me." The imminent shock on her face tells you how against it she is. So Futaro finally enters her house, and the fact that the other 4 sisters also live there, because they're quintuplets, as the show would say. Futaro finally meets the final quintuplet, which is Nino, But 4 of the 5 sisters are quite against Futaro tutoring them. The only student the only sister out of the 5 of them that is actually wants to be involved with the tutoring from the get-go is Yotsuba. So one by one, Futaro has to try and convince the other ones to get on board with the fact that he's going to be tutoring them. First he tries Miku, that doesn't work. Next he tries Itsuki, he doesn't even get let in. Third he tries Nino, again, doesn't get let in. Number 4 he tries Ichika, and her bedroom is a massive dump. You barely have anywhere to actually stand without stepping on something. Her bedroom is that messy. Futaro almost sees a little bit too much of Ichika's body, if you know what I mean. Because she's in bed, of course, she wouldn't be wearing much clothing. So Futaro wakes up, goes to school the next day, and sees under his desk a little note from Miku. He's thinking, okay, what the hell is this? He goes up to the roof. And Miku tells him that she likes the Sengoku period warlords. But she feels a bit embarrassed to admit that to him. Futaro thought it was going to be some kind of weird love confession. That's what he was expecting from her. But no, that's not what it is. So she then gives Futaro a question about the Sengoku Warlord period warlords, and he has to think of it on the spot. He spends most of the day trying to remember the question, and then finally gets it right at the end. And that's how he gets Miku to turn around in terms of her attitude towards him tutoring them, and she gets on board. Ichika was pretty much on board already, and Itsuki finally decides to get on board. So you've got, okay, you're 4/5 of the way, you're 80% of the way there. You've got Yotsuba, Miku, Ichika, and Itsuki on your side. Just Nino left. So next up, Futaro is tutoring them late at night, so he's going to have to stay over. And for some reason, Miku decides to ask, what qualities do you like in a girl? And he's thinking, what does that have to do with anything? But then he thinks, wait a minute. This could be a good opportunity to make them study. So Futaro says, I will only reveal one quality at a time for every page you lot finish. And that works, because Yotsuba gets finished with a page. So he says, number 1, number 3, she can cook. Number 2, that she's cheerful. And number 1, that she cares about her brother. Yeah, he was talking about his sister the whole time. And Miku's like, I'm the opposite of that. So you've already got the idea that Miku might have feelings for Futaro already. She definitely ends up being the first of the quintuplets to have feelings for Futaro. So they go to school the next day, come home, and Futaro ends up tutoring them late at night again. And Ichika has kind of figured out that Miku has feelings for Futaro, so she tries to make Miku make a move on Futaro. with a few things, such as asking Futaro about a question. So he comes and kneels down next to Miku, and Ichika just heaves Miku into Futaro. You can see where this is going. Then, the next thing she tries is she says when someone does well, you should compliment them. So she gets Futaro's hand and puts it on Miku's head. It's kind of patronizing, if anything else. Next, we have Ichika asking him, "So is your heart racing now?" He's like, "No." So she asks Yotsuba to check him. So for about 15 seconds, Yotsuba starts chasing Futaro around the house, catches him, puts her ear next to his heart, and says, "Oh, it's beating really fast." And he's like, "Of course it is with all that running, you idiot." Next, they start talking about a school festival that's going to be happening near the end of the season. And what everyone is going to be doing. So we then finally get to this school festival, and there's this rumour that goes around that Yotsuba tells everyone that anyone who dances around the campfire at the festival are bound to be together for life. Futaro, of course, thinks that's just a load of BS, because why wouldn't you think that? But Miku was there, she instantly believes it and thinks, "I want to get Futaro to dance." And Ichika's thinking the same thing. And in fact, we have the first instance of the quintuplets disguising as each other. Because their faces are identical, if they have the necessary accessory of one of the others and the wig, they can disguise as whichever quintuplet they want to. So there's this guy that wants to confess to Ichika, but Ichika is busy with her acting job that she has on the side of doing her studies. And she asks Miku to disguise as her and say no to the confession of this guy. Luckily, Futaro comes in clutch. Futaro comes in clutch and saves Miku from the embarrassment. And basically, Miku lies to the guy, saying that she promised Futaro that she would dance with him at the end of around the campfire at the festival. The next noteworthy thing is back at the quintuplets house, where Nino gives Futaro some cookies and then gives him some water that she spiked to knock him out, get him in a taxi and send him back home. And this is where Itsuki meets Raiha, which is Futaro's sister. And the adorableness levels of Raiha are too much for Itsuki to handle, to where she actually comes in and has dinner with them. Hell, the three of them even hang out together like a mother, father and daughter family, even though they're actually just teacher, student and little sister. Next, we finally make it to the school festival. And while everybody is setting things up, Ichika and Futaro are moving some wood from inside of a little hut. Take a guess what happens. Some other students or teachers shut the door and lock Futaro and Ichika inside. Well, if that's what you were guessing, then you would be right. So Ichika says to Futaro that she's thinking of maybe quitting school altogether and not studying anymore to fully focus on her acting career. But Futaro is able to convince her to not do that and try to keep a balance between studying and schoolwork. No, that's the same thing, studying and acting. That's what each wants to keep a balance of. So, considering the hut of the door is locked, Futaro and Ichika decide to have a little dance themselves in the hut since nobody's watching. Which is actually quite a nice little moment before they do the next thing, which is the test of courage. Of course, it wouldn't be a romance anime without having a test of courage inside. So Itsuki and Nino go together, Miku and Ichika go together, and Futaro and Yotsuba are supposed to be hiding inside the forest, scaring people. It doesn't work on Miku and Ichika, but it certainly works on Nino and Itsuki. They go running off. Futaro told them, just follow the signs and you won't get lost. Obviously, Itsuki and Nino do the complete opposite and run down the wrong path that the sign is not pointing to. So Futaro goes looking for them. And he's still wearing the blonde wig he was wearing to scare people with, and he ends up finding Nino. And for some reason, Nino thinks that Futaro is somebody else. He later has to try and figure out who this mysterious made-up person that Nino thinks Futaro is someone else. So what she does is she says that he is called. He tells her that he's a family member of Futaro's called Kintaro. Obviously, he's not. He doesn't exist. It's literally just Futaro in a wig. But for some reason, Nino can't see through that. And it's kind of love at first sight in a way for Nino. Yeah, it's kind of love at first sight for Nino, as she starts acting really, really nice towards Futaro, mainly because she doesn't know it's Futaro. And Futaro happened to have this lucky charm from this time he went to Kyoto and met a pink-haired girl that gave it to him. And because Nino's so scared, she starts running away, and she nearly falls off the cliff. Luckily, Futaro swoops in to save her, and they actually use the lucky charm bracelet to pull Nino back up. Which just barely works. Then Futaro needs to try and find a way to get away from Nino and get rid of his disguise and go back to being Futaro. It all ends up with Itsuki being found and saved, and everything then works out. Next we come to the final part of season 1. Well, the final little 2 parts of season 1. The first one being this big festival at the end that's nothing to do with school. It's another festival. The festival, it's like a festival in Japan where everyone's wearing yukatas. That kind of festival. So Futaro goes with his sister Raiha, and the quintuplets all happen to be there. And holy mother of God, do all 5 of them look stunning in their yukatas. Quite a few things go wrong for Futaro. Miku has her foot stepped on, so he has to bandage that up. He has to carry her, that doesn't go well. He has to look for Ichika and tell her boss, who helps out with her acting career, that Ichika's going to enjoy the festival without you. As he struggles to find all of the quintuplets. But they finally all make it back together, and they all set off fireworks together. It's a really nice and heartwarming moment at the end. Then we have just one last thing, and it's a little trip the 6 of them have in the mountains. And Itsuki happens to go missing, so everyone's looking around for her. Futaro gets pulled into an igloo by Miku. Miku happens to make Futaro laugh, which of course makes her happy due to her feelings for him. And Futaro then gets on those bench lifts at log cabins that take you really, really high up, that then you can ski down the mountain. I don't remember what they're called, but they're basically like benches that are on a conveyor belt that go really high, or that go up really high. You probably know what I mean. Futaro happens to sit next to one of the other quintuplets, of which he knows it's Itsuki, because of what she calls him. Because she is the only one that calls him Usagi-kun. That's how he knows it's Itsuki. But Futaro ends up falling unconscious while he's out there. And the legend of the campfire thing finishes with, if you're holding hands with someone, you could be dancing, but as well, holding hands with someone is the key to being bound forever. So as the festival comes to a close, all 5 of them are holding one of Futaro's fingers each, including his thumb, of course. For him to wake up and get super angry and tell them to get the hell out of here. And that is where season 1 comes to a close. A really enjoyable experience, season 1. Getting to meet the characters, distinguishing the difference between them, which I guess I'll go over right now. The way to distinguish the difference between the characters and which one is which in terms of age is Ichika is the oldest, and the way you can tell that she has short pink hair, and the way you can tell she's the oldest is she has one earring in her right ear, which is one accessory signifying she's number 1 in terms of age. Next, we have Nino, who is the most feminine of the 5 of them. She's the only quintuplet out of the 5 of them that wears perfume and has her nails painted, and she also wears 2 ribbons in her hair, signifying she's number 2 in terms of age. Next we have Miku, who has a pair of headphones that she always has around her neck, that on the outsides of them have both have a triangle on each side. How many sides does a triangle have? 3, signifying she is the 3rd and middle sister. Next we have Yotsuba. She wears one green ribbon in her hair that has 4 strands, making her signifying she's the 4th and 2nd youngest sister. And finally we have Itsuki, who wears 2 star hairpins in her hair. But you're thinking that's just 2. Yes, but how many points does a star have? 5, signifying she's the 5th and youngest sister. As for my favourite scene out in season 1, it has to be Operation Doppelganger. Basically, the quintuplets are late for school, along with Futaro. The only person who was there on time is Yotsuba. So what they do is, because the quintuplets have identical faces, because they're identical sisters, it gives them basically what they do is, one by one, they all each have a green ribbon to put in their hair, just like Yotsuba does. And they all go up to the teacher who's standing at the school gate and say, "Ohayo gozaimasu," which means good morning. And because they all look the same, the teacher at the gate can't tell, doesn't actually notice any difference between them. It's so funny because they even sound like Miku and Ichigo actually sound like Yotsuba when they say it. Not so much Itsuki and Nino. They're a lot more against the idea, but they still do it anyway. But the best part of the scene is where Futaro himself puts the same green ribbon in his hair and he tries to get past the teacher at the gate. It doesn't work and he gets pulled away. But yeah, there's my favourite scene. Incredibly enjoyable first season. A very wholesome harem anime, and one that I have been obsessed with with seasons 1 and 2 since the start of this year. But that will make the first anime video of 2021 and the first anime video in 3 months come to a close. I hope you guys have enjoyed the return of anime content to the channel. I feel like I certainly have, and the reason why we've covered the Quintessential Quintuplets first is because this is the show that reignited my love for anime. Watching this show made me remember why I love anime in the first place. So that's why it deserves to be the first show we cover making the return of anime content. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until next time, catch you later.